I think the world would be a much better place if people accepted their dark side.
Welcome to Rose Feather Skull, a podcast highlighting stories from fascinating artists and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, T.g.cofield. Just like a conversation.
Can I cuss?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is not like, yeah, absolutely. The great thing is like no one is giving us money and telling us what we can and can't do.
Right.
The point is to shoot what we want and then, show it and see who's into it.
Yeah, I love that. Cool.
Yeah.
I rarely do it, so this is special.
This is so much fun. Okay, we have Erica Scoggins here talking to us. She is a talented producer, writer, director, sound editor, and we're gonna focus in on what she's got going on. How's it going?
Pretty good.
So, the first thing, you were just in France. Tell me what you were doing there and how it went.
Yeah, drank a lot of wine, mostly. But we were there
Cheers, by the way.
Yeah, thank you for the tequila. We were there for a short film festival called Clermont-Ferrand. It's in a town kind of in central France. And so that's where we world premiered our last film, The Boogie Woman. And it creeped some people out. It's about a girl's first period. So it was good. I had some meetings about a feature film that we're got in development right now. And kind of a working celebration.
It's awesome. I love Boogie Woman. It's the first thing I saw that you wrote and directed it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watched it again last night. And I'm just like, the cinematography, the sound design is really what got me. And I watched the whole credits and I'm like, oh yeah, Erica did the sound design. That's
my favorite part. I love, I think there's a lot of attention given to the image, and then sound can often be like an afterthought. And for me, I really like sound and animation, which often uses disparate sounds. Mm-hmm. So this wouldn't be knocking on a table, it'd be like some other crazy sound, like a ball against a wall. So it'd be this image with a different sound that doesn't actually match. So I like kind of stealing that and using that with live action.
Yes.
That's leather creaking.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm a cinematographer. The cinematography is so amazing. Tell me about there's so much to say, because last time I saw you, it was the day before you were going to France for the film, and now it's a couple months later, and you told me about your German cinematographer. Tell me about him and how you met him and how he came to Chattanooga. That's a good segue to filmmaking in Chattanooga. So I went to grad school out in LA, and I did an exchange program with the DFFB in Berlin, and so I got kind of paired with this guy, Albrecht. It's like the first German person I ever met. And he was, trained over there, and it's a professional school. You go there and you stay in school until you make a thesis film. So he was working professionally and, going to classes. And we worked together on a film and did really well together and just gelled. And so I was working on my thesis film at Cal Arts, and I basically asked him, do you want to shoot this film? It's extremely visual, it's kind of trippy. Yeah. And he was really into it. And so he came over, I helped him with his plane ticket, and he brought a first AC over, and we shot in Chattanooga at Zarzar's. So most people here know Zarzar's. And Charleston, Tennessee, and just a kind of myriad of places around here. And it was an incredible experience. We all stayed at my parents' house on the river, and it was like summer camp for adults while working. It got out of hand sometimes, but we got the film done, so. That's awesome. And then he and that same crew worked on your second short film, right?
Yeah. So we all became such a family, and so I sent him the Boogie Woman script, and I was like, do you want to make this? And he was like, yes, I want to shoot this too. And he was like, let's make a feature. And I'm like, okay, I'm writing it, be patient. And
really quickly, tell us about what he did with the gels in the skating rink and how they responded.
Oh, yeah. So we shot at Roller Coaster Skate World in Fort Oglethorpe. And that place hasn't been updated since the 70s probably. And they have, your regular skating rink globe lights, but they also had these fluorescents that were just ugly and bright, and so we gelled all of them, and the owners of the skating rink liked it so much that they bought the gels off of us, and they're still there. So it's a little bit more like dreamy and nicely lit.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So, like one of the most interesting things when I found it, someone told me, do you know Erica Scoggins? And I was like, no, but I looked you up. I was like, wow, like you're not just a filmmaker and writer and stuff, you're like an artist, a visual artist. I love your drawings. What's your Instagram name, by the way?
Red hair, red pants.
Red hair, red pants is your Instagram? Okay. So the drawings you have on there are very just like, they're dark and brooding. Like, why are you drawn to that, like that style?
I think the world would be a much better place if people accepted their dark side. I think growing up in the South, especially, you see a lot of people like pretending everything's good. But those people who are really looking at their dark side and the dark side of where they're from and what's happened in the past, and just the hard questions about being a human. I think people will be a lot more empathetic and understanding of each other. And I don't know if when people look at my drawings, they would think all those things. They're probably like, why are these women all scary and, dying of anorexia? Like they're just creepy, kind of ghostly women. But yeah, I think I don't feel like the time it takes to make a film or make a drawing, it's not something that I want to, I love comedy, I love kind of uplifting stuff sometimes, but when you're really putting your heart and soul into something, I want it to be challenging, and that's definitely gonna be apparent in the next film. So, yeah. How did the shopping go for your feature? Good. So we're really early in the process. When we're done with this, I'm going back to the script writing. But we met with some companies over there that are interested. So we're interested in maybe doing a European co-production. So we would shoot it here. Okay. And potentially do, in and around Chattanooga. With a crew from? With similar crew. So I'd have the same DP. Germany. And then we would maybe bring on a producer from either France or Germany, or do post-production over there. So something about Europe is all, like in the European Union, people do co-productions all the time with different countries coming together. And it's hard to work with the US because our funding structure is different. Do you speak German? No. Or? Nine. I know how to say that I'm lactose intolerant in German and French, and that's it. That's important if you're lactose intolerant. Yeah. So part of the cathexis thing is like focusing in on, amazing people doing amazing work, but also how that relates to this town that we live in. And so I kind of want to get your opinion on several different things about, for one, like you're from Cleveland, just north of Chattanooga. You spent most of your life in and out of here. Like you've seen the growth that's happening right now, the development. Like, what is your take? I want to know your take and your perspective on what's happening. Yeah. Is that so the good and the bad? Yeah, I got you. So I moved after high school and I was gone for about 10 years. Living in Nashville and LA and in Denver briefly. And then I came back here about 2 years ago. And the thing that brought me back was the feeling that, first of all, I wanted to shoot all my films here. And even when I was living in LA, I was shooting here because everything I do is set kind of in this Southern Gothic setting. So moved back here because of its accessibility. I could live here and afford to travel and make films here. It's much more accessible in terms of locations and people being really excited about being involved in a film. And there's this sense that getting it back here to my roots now, before what seems to be a potential kind of blow up in terms of growth, it just felt like the city had come a long way from my angsty teenage get me out of this place mindset, and to where it really felt like a place that I could come back and meet the other people who are doing work here and become part of a community, as opposed to swimming upstream in a highly established, highly competitive place that gave me anxiety, honestly.
Like Los Angeles?
Yeah, so it didn't sit well. I really loved going to school out there, but it didn't feel like home in my bones, so.
But you had to go out there and try.
Yeah.
And you got your education there.
Yeah, and it was never really my goal to go to Hollywood. I just, of all the schools that I was interested in, that was has always been my first choice, and it was magical. But once I was done there, I didn't feel like there was much more waiting for me here than out there.
That totally makes sense. Okay, here's a question for you. If Chattanooga lost you, if you decided to move away, because I'm sure it's entered your mind from time to time.
More like, let me take a trip, because I've seen the same people every day for 3 weeks.
Wow, so you don't have too many issues with living here?
No, I think if I were to move, say for work, it would be Atlanta. Just because, the film industry is not quite here yet. Yeah. But clearly you're starting something, so. Well,
so, a lot's happening right now, but it sounds like this is like a home base. Mm-hmm. It's affordable. It's easy to shoot places without location permits. Yeah. People are excited but you still are not relying on just the city to support you.
Right. Yeah. So, clearly my DP's from Berlin, but that doesn't mean there aren't great DPs in the area. We just have, established relationship. But, I pull crew from Atlanta and Nashville when we shoot, because we just can't fill all the positions here in Chattanooga. Yeah. So I'm thinking that will change, but I don't know, at what point.
What's it like being a female director, writer? Are people do you get shit? Tell me some dirt. Are people really receptive, or do you encounter any kind of?
Someone who barely knows me and was across the dinner table from me at a party once, said, "Oh, you're a director. How do you do that when you're
so small and soft spoken?" And
the two people beside me who know me were like, "Just think about your response." And I was like, "Well, I'll just let my friends explain." And my boyfriend Dakin was like, so he just kind of launched into his explanation of who I am and what I do, and I was just like, it wasn't an offensive question, and straight on, but it was like, he wouldn't ask a man that, so it's in that way it is sexist. And so I was just like, you don't even know me. Mm-hmm. First of all, I'm not that small. And if you have a crew that respects you and cast that respects you, you don't need to be yelling, and that's just a stereotype. So there's that.
Stereotypical director.
Yeah.
So if there were some young female want to be filmmakers, I'll say it in a different way. If you had a message to any, if some young girls watch your films and they're like, oh my God, how does she do that? How does she get there? Mm-hmm. I want to do that. What would your piece of advice or message be to them?
This is the best time to be a woman trying to make movies, because everyone has recognized that it has been an absurdly male-dominated position. Mm-hmm. And I always want to be really clear and say, more women directing films does not mean we demonize male directors or say that, they got where they are because they're men, because that devalues really important work. It's just that there should be more diverse voices. And I would say educate yourself, work hard, and deal with issues that are hard to deal with, because otherwise it's just not really worth the time and effort. You gotta really give a shit about what you're doing.
Yeah, you have something to say. When I was watching Boogeyman last night, I felt like I was trying to get in your head, how you wrote that. And I was like, I feel like she experienced some of these things. And when the lights go out, spoiler alert, when the lights go out and you hear the leather tightening or the shrieking when the lights go out, I felt like, to me, I was like, I wonder if those are like the pains of, what you feel.
Yeah, so I deal a lot with symbolism. So, everything that happens to the main character, she gets her period at this all-night skate party, and these strange things start happening, and they're kind of symbolic of her body's changes. And then society's changes around her body's changes, which, should be her own, just her own issue and her own thing to work through without shame or...
and people are fucking mean.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's such a stigma around it still. I mean, you'd think people want to say like, oh, racism doesn't exist anymore. Sexism doesn't exist anymore. And it's like, it does. It's just, it's so coded and like ingrained that it's not so out in the open anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of even scarier, honestly.
Right. Because it's still being fought.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on Chattanooga's identity? I know that's a huge question, but like...
Yeah.
What do you... What does that make you think of? I
think of this kind of like outdoor... I mean, that's kind of what's projected is like, go here to, see the great outdoors, go see Rock City, go paddleboard in the Tennessee River, and there are all these beautiful things that are put out. But one thing I have known as a fact all along, but really was just so blatant to me when I came back, is just how segregated we still are. People who come and visit from Atlanta, or some of my actors who came from out of town, they were like, where are the Black people? Like, there are not people of color. There are not, like mixed crowds in places. A lot of places you go. I mean, every once in a while there's like a few people of color, but it's in most other cities it's more of a multicultural situation.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Because I grew up in Canada, and I moved here 12 years ago, and so I'm still going through culture shock.
Do you experience the same thing?
Well, that's a whole other show. I could talk a lot about living in Northern Ontario and growing up near a reservation, and the same issues, different...
different flavor. Different flavor,
exactly. Mm-hmm. One thing I would love is just to tell me an anecdote of, I don't even know, just a story. Not like one of the most powerful things that you've experienced. I know that's like completely open.
No, I mean, I got a few of those.
Well, let's hear one.
Yeah, okay. So my first film, The Sacred Disease, or the first film that I actually wanted to show people, so I call it my first film. It's based on my experience with temporal lobe epilepsy. And I started having these episodes in college where I would get this strange sense of deja vu, but not like regular deja vu, not like, oh, this has happened before. Like, I feel like we've been sitting here. It was coupled with this profound sense of fear, my stomach tightening, this feeling of foreboding, like something horrible was about to happen. And then, like my left arm would twitch a little bit, and my perception, like if I was looking at you, things would kind of like expand and contract, like Alice in Wonderland-esque. And then I would have this moment where, this is the part I don't really know how to explain. This is why I made a movie about it, is because language just kind of fails me, but it's like, I would know the thoughts that I was about to think, and it would be like a series of like sentences or just random words, but I felt like I knew everything that was coming, but it wasn't coming from me, like I wasn't actively thinking them, and it was like, it's like someone taking all of these thoughts and cramming them into my head, and I knew that I couldn't stop them, I had to think them all the way through. And then I would have sometimes these like, not hallucinations, but like very clear, like mind images, almost like a dream with my eyes open. And then I would like kind of, like everything would kind of like melt away, and I would usually like be crying or like confused and really, really tired. And that happened over the course of 2 years, or maybe like a year before medication, like 36 times. And I know because I wrote them all down. And I realized through seeing a neurologist and neurosurgeon that it was a type of epilepsy. And it's this very specific type, temporal lobe epilepsy. Supposedly Lewis Carroll had it, so Alice in Wonderland was based on his experience with that. So these kind of like weird names and weird language that's used in that, in his book, and weird images and changes in perception. Yeah, I don't know. Those were the most extreme, like otherworldly experiences I've ever had, and they happened in the most mundane places. Like they started happening in Spanish class in college. So one trigger, what I found out was one of my triggers is like tip of the tongue. Like when you feel like you know a word but you can't think of it, you're like, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. That happens a lot when you're learning another language, and that like effort or strain on my brain, that very specific thing would cause this to happen sometimes. And on top of like lack of sleep and these other things. But yeah, that was a very interesting. I thought I was going crazy a little bit until I figured out what it was, and yeah.
Wow, and you're accomplishing all this, like even with it. Like, how does you still have episodes?
I don't have many more. So it was a problem when it was happening, but I started taking this medication that ended up being awful, and that's what the movie is about. Is like, she's on this medication that makes her sick, so why shouldn't she just be the sick that she already was? Which is a whole nother can of worms question, but
The Sacred Disease. Can people watch this film?
Yeah, right now it's still online. So if you go to my website, it's on there, which is just ericascoggins.com.
ericascoggins.com.
Yeah.
Okay. And Boogie Woman is not on there.
Boogie Woman is not released yet
because it's still in the circuit.
Yeah.
Festival circuit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So man, is there any time that you in the future that will be public?
Yeah, it will be in the future. We are maybe gonna, we're showing in Atlanta next month at Atlanta Film Festival.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So I can go to Atlanta and watch,
you can go to Atlanta
watch it on the big screen?
Yeah, and Tuesday, April 9th at 7 p.m., I believe, at the Plaza Theater.
April 9th?
Yeah.
I can see Boogie Woman on the big screen.
On the big screen. 5.1 surround.
Yes.
Gotta get that subwoofer.
Yes. Thanks so much for...
but eventually it'll be...
Cool.
It'll be on.
Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah. Like I said, I have no secrets, so... But yeah, I mean, well, just to, finish with your question, like my condition was not nearly as bad as a lot of people's. Like I would have 2 or 3 a day at the most, and then I could go a few days without one. And the only thing I really couldn't do was drive, and during that time. But some people have hundreds in a day, need surgery to live a normal life. And so I was lucky in the sense that I...
Insane. That...
It's weird. But like me explaining it is like, doesn't come close. So that's why I made a movie. And, it's kind of a symbolic retelling of these like specific symptoms. So
yeah, it's very trippy.
Yeah.
Sacred Disease is so trippy.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And thanks for like doing this on such short notice.
No problem.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm like at my computer by myself all day writing, so this is a really good break from that.
Good.
Yeah.
Erica Scoggins, go look her up online, check out her work.
I'm there. Google me.
Google her.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Rose, Feather, Skull. If you'd like to keep up with me and my work, you can find me on Instagram at t.g.cofield. That's T as in Tim, .g as in goat, COFIELD. Until next time, keep chasing the light.